everyone, to another episode of the Freight Caviar Podcast. Today we have Nathan Kennedy. Nathan Kennedy is the general manager at Newegg. Nathan, thank you so much for taking your time to be on the show today. If you could real quick, just introduce yourself and tell us, what do you do for a living?
Yeah, pleasure to meet you, Paul. My name is, as Paul said, Nathan Kennedy. I currently work for a company called Newegg, and I'm pretty split up in my roles as far as what I do here. For the most part, I am logistics focused, but that does go back and forth between business and the operation side of things. My most recent role here was we built a last mile delivery service called Newegg Express. And with that, we deliver all orders that come in on the platform next day to our customers here in Southern California. From there, I went into the warehouse as a fulfillment manager, and my role is to make sure that anywhere from 5,000 to 10,000 orders a day get out from the inventory side of the warehouse out into the truck. And then I'm also helping with corporate cycle count control procedures, as well as doing business and sales for our Newegg marketplace logistics services.
So a lot of logistics that you have to deal with. And with Newegg being such a large company, we were just talking, it's $2 billion revenue a year, right? That Newegg does.
Oh no, that was around the time that we had started the marketplace and doing the logistics service. I believe now we're at around $3.5 billion. $3.5
billion revenue. So that's a tremendous amount. You've been through a lot of situations in the last few years, like the pandemic, the tariffs in China. So I'm not sure how much you could disclose here, Nathan, but could you tell us, how has the logistics space affected your job ever since, like, let's say, the Chinese tariffs and then the pandemic to the current situation now? Since when you get all these orders in, and a lot of stuff is coming in from China, how has it been on the Newegg side?
Gotcha. So it's been a bit of a plus and a minus when it comes to, let's just say, Newegg first off is the biggest seller on our platform. We are an e-commerce company. The marketplace is something that we added on to allow other sellers to sell on our platform. So when it comes to the supply side of things, it was pretty bogged down during, I would say, maybe around June was when we started seeing it being harder to get supplies all the way up and through the end of 2020. That said, on the business side, everything's gone up. So with less orders and less sales orders, we do have more revenue coming in. So it's been a little bit of a plus and minus for Newegg.com as a core company. Overall, it turned out to be a very profitable year. But there were a lot of, like you said, on the logistics side, there were a lot of challenges. Newegg also has Newegg Logistics, which is it's a completely separate business. It's a 3PL company, and we offer transportation services as well. So in that aspect, we grew exponentially due to the fact that Amazon had closed their doors to everything but essentials. They were only accepting like baby wipes, toilet paper, cleaning supplies and stuff like that. So they weren't selling they weren't allowing a lot of products, say like the normal toys and, books or whatever people buy. Those aren't allowed to come into the doors for maybe about 3 or 4 months. During that time, a lot of people came to Newegg and our 3PL company because we were able to get them in the door. We had their products received oftentimes within 24 hours. And then we're integrated with their major sales channels. So any orders that come in, we were able to seamlessly process those out to the customers. So again, it was good, it was bad. Overall, it was a huge, or Newegg saw a huge benefit, as did a lot of e-commerce. But on the logistics side, there were a couple of issues that we had to work really hard to get around.
Sure. How is the current situation logistically with, let's say, the war and the China lockdowns? Have you experienced any sort of difference in the last few months?
We haven't seen any real differences when it comes to the supply that we get. But when it comes to the supply coming in overall, or the supply that's expected to be out until the end of June, I do see a slight decrease there. But then there's also the marketplace sellers that use our fulfillment centers to ship out their orders. And so we've also seen a decrease on that side as well. Now, in business conversations that I've had, a lot of our sellers, they have reported, and this is from large companies, all the way down to smaller ones that have reported a significant decrease in sales over the past month or so, maybe around 20% decrease from what it was last year. But I do believe that last year and the year before were a little bit of they're very hard to go off of because of the fact that if you can't go to the store, you have to order online.
Yeah.
So while it is a decrease from last year, I'm not sure how big of a decrease it is from before the pandemic. But overall, supply lines are seeming to slow down. We don't have port congestion issues like we had recently, but it's just like you mentioned, with a lot of things being shut down in China, the production is not going on, and so there's nothing to load on the ships to bring over.
Yeah, definitely. I saw this statistic on Twitter. I think we're going off the same data where I think March 2021 was like the peak in terms of like e-commerce orders online. And then it's been kind of steadily going down. It wasn't, but year over year, it's been like a 20% decrease.
Right.
So yeah, it's definitely interesting to see. But yeah, so Nathan, what can you tell us about like the logistics side? Like you've been a customer sales rep or business development rep on the logistics end, and you've seen the fulfillment side. Like, do you, like we talked about this earlier, like can you tell us something that maybe you find a little bit like unique? This might be like a question that that's maybe like thrown out there. I'm just wondering if you could tell us something like unique about the industry that you've seen, or that you kind of think is like a little bit quirky, or like just like give us a little insight into your position and what you've learned throughout the last few years, if you could.
Yeah, definitely. Well, one of the main things that I've seen, and this is, I guess, taking a step back, is evolution, if you will. Transportation will evolve into the needs of the consumer at the end of the day. So when it comes to, say, you have the traditional model where you have big box retailers like Walmart, and you have the individual products or the companies that make the products they sell. 3PL used to be a game where you put a lot of pallets on big trucks and you send it to one location, and then they stock their shelves and sell your product. And now we're seeing a huge shift into the e-commerce side where I don't need to send it to Walmart. I'll put my product on Amazon and call a truck, or I'll take my product down to a FedEx or UPS store and have them ship it out for me. And so one of the biggest, I guess, evolutions that I've seen is it does seem parcel delivery is growing at a very rapid rate due to the expansion of e-commerce. And for companies like, say, Newegg, or even the smaller delivery service partners that they just have a bunch of trucks and they want to work for virtually anybody that wants to put product on their vehicle, there's a great room for growth in these areas, because if I'm selling products, I don't really want to get into the freight costs. I don't really want to get into the long or the LTL and FTL solutions, because I don't know anything about that space. But if I just know that I'm going to give you a package and you're going to deliver it, that's literally all I need to know. And so for the parcel delivery side of things and the companies that are going to cater to that more, I do see that being a lot more successful in the long run. Not that traditional transportation and logistics is going to go away, because everything needs to be stored somewhere. But it's just creating a large growth path for the smaller side of transportation or the last mile side.
Totally. Yeah, I feel like a lot of companies that are, smaller and aren't able to be on Walmart shelves, but they have some kind of influence online, could utilize that and to their advantage. It's all about, helping the smaller businesses, or I think it definitely, there's a lot of advantages for it. Awesome. Nathan, moving forward, freight nightmares. You deal with a lot of issues in logistics. Can you recall some memories where were like, this was just an absolute freight nightmare?
Yeah. So the first one, I don't know if it really counts as a freight nightmare, but I was in the service, and so one of the main job that I did in the service was storage and transportation of explosives. And we hear this really loud thump, right? And so we turn and look left, and when somebody was loading a pallet of bombs onto a truck, they didn't drop the forks down far enough. And so the fork pulled the pallet off the truck, and it landed off a 3.5 foot bed onto the ground. luckily they are fairly safe when it comes to that type of issue. So, the fact that we heard a thump and that wasn't the last thing we heard was a very good sign. But it made us all really think twice about like, hey, like, what are we actually doing here, and how do we do it as safe as possible?
You were shipping bombs?
Yeah,
Like,
I was in the military, so
okay.
yeah.
So you like have seen the military side of logistics
Yeah.
as well. Okay. What can you tell us about the military side of logistics? That's kind of fascinating. That's actually extremely fascinating.
Yeah, for that, it's pretty standard, to be honest. The most, I guess, weird thing that I've seen was a FedEx truck pulling up with rounds on it. I don't know what the parameters for that are, but it was rifle rounds. Nothing crazy. But yeah, it's well, when it comes to the munition side, everything that we do is hazmat, technically. So there are a lot of different regulations that you have to follow. For example, everything has to be block and brace. So once you load the back of a truck, you have to nail 2x4s down into the bed in order to make sure those pallets don't shift. Say like you can't have a high explosive or a bomb type of munition stored with bullets, because if that bomb goes off, those bullets become shrapnel and they go flying for miles.
Yeah.
So there's a huge amount of safety regulations involved. But yeah, other than that, it's kind of standard. We use more flatbeds than anything else. But yeah, it's storing stuff, accountability for your product, and loading trucks. So I guess the or the way to describe it that does not sound impressive was I drove a forklift and I counted bullets, right? The more impressive way to describe it would be I was an ammunition technician specialist in the United States Marine Corps, and I dealt with everything that the Marine Corps shot. So if that was out of a plane or out of even like the blank rounds or simunition rounds where they're just more or less wax type paintballs, we've moved it through our facilities, and oftentimes we've had to pick up stuff and move it physically. So
That's amazing.
Definitely a great way to get into logistics, because everything is 100% based on safety. So
yeah, definitely. And I know there's in terms of driver requirements, like the driver has to he can't have a record. There's a whole list of requirements. Like he has to pay child support if that's the case. Like because I see it on DAT the load sometimes. Like can't clean record, has to pay no missed child support payments and stuff like that. And so there's obviously also that. And in terms of loading and unloading, I know in the military usually takes quite some time, right?
Well, it depends. With us, we didn't, but I think you're talking about more of, say, like what I worked out was called an ammunition supply point. So we would order supplies, or we would order more munitions based on what the forecast was. Now, when it comes to a unit coming in and picking up the order to go shoot, with that, that was quick. We have the order come in on, say, like a piece of paper. Same thing as a lot of the warehouses use for the order sheet. We go pick the quantity. We'd have it verified, but on the way out, one good thing is there's a QC check, and the quality control individual would put their seal on it to verify that everything that was supposed to go out actually went out. And then we load the truck. So that was pretty standard. Now, when it comes to our supply point resupplying, there could be some, I guess, lag there. But I've never really dealt with the admin side. So then you have the people that work in the wire, or they work with all the operations, but then you have the people that work in the office on the computers, and they're the ones that deal with, ordering more supplies. They deal with mainly the paperwork and the admin side of the table.
Got it. And the whole military side of logistics is like another conversation I'd love to have with you, just because that's something like a lot of people would actually really dig into, and that's like a whole other topic, but that's for another day, Nathan. Another topic I want to touch on is service in America. Well, last couple of years, in terms of everyone's been busy, so service has been kind of dying. At least some companies have been doing a good job with service. It's not everyone, but I'm wondering what your perspective is. What have you seen? Is service dying in America, and what are your thoughts on that?
So I don't think service is dying in America, but I do see the service is greatly changing. What a lot of, I guess, company owners right now, besides say like millennials and below, a lot of company owners, they're Generation X, even some baby boomers, but not too many. But they're a little bit more used to a traditional hands-on feel. So from a business standpoint, I would be more inclined to actually have an in-person meeting or a conversation where you can have, say, the value of a handshake. Now, when it comes to the younger generations that are, creating their own businesses and owning them, they don't really care about that. And I do think that has some play in it. But for the most part, from what I've seen from the provider side, is everything is going database and everything is going digital. So what that means is that there is less human interaction. They're more of, say, like your business manager is going to be more reading reports rather than actually having a conversation. And so that's where it's changing now. There could be the good and bad of that. You have very influential or very persuasive people that use that ability to do things that are not in the best interest of the client. On the same note, you have people who could read data very well, and they could also use that. That's not in the best interest of the client. But on the other side of that, you have people that are very good at convincing people that really do want to help people out. And that's why a lot of people get into business and sales, is because of that opportunity to help somebody out. Besides, it's probably the highest paying position in the United States or in the entire world is being in a sales position. So there's the financial aspect of that as well. But I do think it's more of change. I don't see services dying. Because a company might want to cut back in one area and refocus, say, from what I understand on the UPS side, they're not going for every customer in America anymore. They're going to provide the best service they possibly can for their customers that they have. So what does that mean for the smaller companies? It means that you're probably not going to get the same incentives. However, for the large companies that pretty much drive commerce throughout the world, they're being much better catered to. So it's kind of like a catch-22. I do believe that in many aspects it could be dying, but that's more in a traditional sense. Whereas when you're moving to a data metrics, everything has deep learning systems and AI that controls virtually everything. It's going to be a much different sense of service, and it's going to be a little bit more cold, but also much more calculated when it comes to what is being provided to the given customer.
So in logistics, dealing with fulfillment and shipping, you deal with transportation providers. I know you have Newegg Express,
right,
but you also deal with other transportation providers. So how do you go about picking a transportation provider, and how do the best transportation providers stick out?
Yeah, great question. So one of the things that I've seen, I could say I've kind of learned it throughout my life, but one thing I've seen Newegg do a lot is we place more value on a trust aspect than we do on, say, even a cost aspect. Most companies are going to go for the lowest cost, but just like almost everybody knows, the lowest cost also means that, hey, your insurance might be an issue. Say like for car insurance, if you have the lowest cost car insurance, even if it's full coverage, it might not cover everything that you drive, like say like a higher price one will. And so that's one of the biggest ways that we make our decisions. When it comes to the carriers that we're actually using, we do go with the lowest cost based on the need. But when it comes to actually vetting a carrier, one of the things that we look heavily into is how do they process claims, and how do they deal with loss. It's always been a really big thing in the logistics industry that it's hard to get a carrier to cover the true cost of a loss. A lot of times they'll try to say, oh, well, there's a certain amount that we cover from the carrier side. There's only a certain amount that we cover. Anything above that would have to be based on insurance. And we have seen quite a few issues over the years. For example, one guy pulls over to go to sleep and then his trailer disappears. I don't know how it happened, right? But these are things that the carrier does need to consider, especially when you're dealing with the electronics. A trailer, not just electronics, virtually anything could be, thousands of or millions of dollars with a product in that container. And so it's how well are the carriers willing to work on these cases that are going to happen no matter what. We hope that they're rare. Also, when it comes to the service, like you said, service is a very big thing. If I have to pay you a little bit more, but I know that you are going to be on time for every delivery, or at least 95 to 98% of deliveries, given there's no disasters, then that's something that I'm going to look at a little bit more than the fact that you might save me $50 on a shipment. Once we have our vetted carriers, that's where we do go based on cost of service, right? But when it comes to actually selecting the carrier to work with, Newegg is very selective, and that's why it took me about 2 years to get one of the brokers that I've known for a while actually sign on to the company, is because he's been able to save us some money here and there the entire time that I've known him. But it's okay, how do you work with your claims? He handles any claims or any insurance 100% himself as a broker, which is kind of hard to find. And that was one of the main things that allowed us to kind of sign with him, was he handles it from end to end.
And he seemed quite persistent if it took 2 years to get your business. So it's interesting. When I was in California, I hung out with Matt Walsh, who's the #1 sales agent at Echo, and I was asking him for sales tips, and he was talking about being just persistent. Where like his largest customers, it took him years to actually land. It wasn't like a one call, one kind of thing. It was just persisting on it, and always being there for them when they needed him. And so like it's interesting that you bring that up, that it took you almost 2 years to get your broker set up with Newegg. So if any brokers listening here and trying to land some business, it's all, persistence is one of the most important factors. And I love how you brought that up. Also, what I think is interesting, you said that sometimes the value of the cargo is over $1 million in like a trailer. What is being shipped if the value of cargo in a trailer is over $1 million?
For Newegg, it's the electronic space. So I mean, when you look at the size of the laptop, this, you can fit a lot of these inside the back of a truck. This laptop, I'm not sure what it's worth now. When I got it, it was worth about $2,500. So if you have say 5 pallets in that laptop.
Yeah, sorry, go for it. I'm bad at math.
Yeah, no worries. You could fit 26 to 28 pallets, depending upon the pallet size, in the back of the truck. Right. Yeah. And let's just say you could fit 100 of these times 25 times 28. That's where your value can go up a lot. But the main thing for Newegg would be components, say like graphics cards, right?
Okay.
The graphics cards are a very hot commodity. They're usually very expensive, or shit like an Intel i9. I don't know what version they're on right now. But when a new version of those comes out, they're $900 to $1,000, and you can fit a lot of them. They're about this big.
Okay.
Outside of the case.
Sure.
So if they come retail package, then they're in a big box and you can't fit as many. But if they come OEM for computer builds, you could probably fit $10 million on a truck easily.
Yeah, there was a posting last week someone sent me on my Instagram page where the broker posted that the value of the cargo is $8 million. And someone sent me the screenshot. I posted it on my story, and I was like, "What is a product?" And a lot of people were saying that it's like Bitcoin mining, like stations or electronics. Some people wrote cocaine, some people wrote gold, but it was just, I was like, "What is this?" I mean, this is for me, like I never dealt with electronics when I like maybe like a few small shipments of electronics when I was a broker. Mostly dealt with beer and water from Nestle and Nestle, Coca-Cola, and Anheuser-Busch. That's what I was shipping predominantly. So when you have a carrier with that's you might be potentially giving $8 million of worth of cargo, you have to really vet them, right? I mean, there's no way around
definitely. Yeah, the only thing I could think of that value is precious metals, which you can only fit so much weight on a truck due to regulations. But electronics and art, I mean, that's really all I could think of. A lot of carriers, from what I've seen, they don't like to touch art though, just because of how easily it is to damage it.
Okay.
But yeah, I would say those two things. It's probably electronics on that $8 million shipment.
Yeah.
Or some sort of technology of some kind. Because I mean, if you have, let's just say if Amazon Web Services core coding was on, a tiny computer chip, that computer chip would be worth billions of dollars. So, who knows what's on it.
Yeah, no, you're definitely right. And then another thing that you said, Nathan, was there's a story about a guy that fell asleep on the side of the road in his truck, and then he got his trailer stolen.
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
I mean, honestly, that's about all I know. I found out about that a couple of months after it happened. But this is when I was because I mean, I wasn't pushing senior leadership every single day, like, hey, sign this carrier, right? But you retouch it every month or so. And when I was talking about it, once they had all that figured out, that's when they let me know, like, by the way, one of the reasons why it took so long is because we had to deal with this. And, this is one of the things that we're worried about. But yeah, I guess he was on the side of the road. I personally would believe it's an inside job.
Yeah,
I don't know how you don't know
that happens all
somebody's
the time.
unhooking their trailer. Yeah, but yeah, he's just parked on the side of the road, and he's like, "Oh, I don't know what happened. My trailer disappeared." So, I mean, how do you not know what happened? Oh, I was asleep. It's like you can sleep through that. It's like a
Yeah,
miniature earthquake going on in your cabin. You were asleep. Oh yeah, I was asleep, very tired. So,
and like you
all
said,
right.
it was on the side of the road, right? Or was it a truck stop? Do you know the details behind that? Because if it's on the side of the road, it's like, what were you doing on the side of the road?
Oh no, but there are pull off spots for trucks. When
Yeah,
you're going
yeah.
long distance, that they can pull off. So I don't believe it was a truck stop. I do
Okay,
believe it was like a designated area that trucks could pull off on the side of the road.
sure. Yeah.
But yeah, moving a trailer is loud and it's hard.
Totally. I like during the beginning of the pandemic, like it was just April, so like a month in, and we had a load from St. Louis to Cartersville, Georgia, to the Anheuser-Busch plant, and this driver was sleeping when they cut the seal, and like he started hearing the rumbling in the trailer because they were sealing the beer, and he came out and they ran off. I think they got like one pallet of beer, but like he woke
Yeah.
up from like them just walking onto the trailer, like the rumbling of like the packaging
Oh yeah.
and stuff. So yeah, I mean there's a lot of shadiness in the industry, especially with electronics. I mean, I'm guessing that was a big, probably an expensive shipment that people could make
Oh
money
yeah.
off of. Yeah,
I can say the only plus side to electronics is most things. I mean, even if it's a $2 value, it could have a serial number on it. And especially when it comes to the bigger ones, say like your bigger manufacturers. We've been able to find cases of theft, whether it's internal or external for clients that we sell to on B2B, just by going back to the manufacturer and seeing when that thing comes online. So
okay,
that is one of the benefits. Now, if you don't have supply to make your sales for 2 months, the impact that has on your business, it doesn't matter whether or not you recover that product, right?
sure,
But I guess, yeah, like I said, the only plus side is there is, say like versus a painting, right? That somebody could pull a GPS tracker off and throw it. For a lot of electronics, that unit kind of is a tracker in a sense because it'll dial into the IP address of whatever device is using it. And then you can actually locate the product that way.
sure, definitely. Which country are you mostly buying electronics from? Is it China predominantly?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So
I,
like,
I don't think we directly buy it from China specifically, but if NVIDIA graphics cards were made in America, then we probably buy them here. But most of
sure,
electronics, I think 90 to 95% of electronics are actually manufactured in China.
got it. What's like the second country that you'd buy from? Obviously, China's number one, 95%. But do you have like a number two in mind?
I couldn't think of it,
Korea.
honestly. I do know that our seller base, we do have a lot of sellers that have manufacturing. Say, there's a lot that comes from the Middle East.
Okay.
And then there's also, some places in Europe. There's a company called Be Quiet that we work with. They're one of our sellers, and they've been a partner with us for a long time, based out of Germany. Um, I have one seller that they work out of Romania,
Okay.
but even with them, they're manufacturing in China for the most part.
Got it.
So they do have some manufacturing and mainly assembly on the European side, but most of it does come from China.
Okay. Yeah. An interesting conversation. Is there anything that you'd want freight brokers or trucking companies or dispatchers, truck drivers to know?
I mean, for drivers and dispatchers, not so much. As a former dispatcher, I guess the only thing I could say is, just be on top of your drivers, whether they're independent or whether they're not. Your good drivers, your bad drivers. So be on top of the ones that need it the most, but also just stopping by to check in. Not just, hey, are you going to be on time, but hey, how's your day going? Make it a little bit more of a personal connection there, because I guarantee you that's going to save your business a lot of money. One thing that
Totally.
companies like ours hate is the fact that, if I call your company, let me call dispatch and I have to wait 3 hours to hear from you. Sorry, your buddy next door will respond to me in 5 minutes. So we have to make a business decision that's going to better impact our customers. Just
Yeah.
like anybody else, without customers, you have no business. So, or clients, but same thing. And I'm sorry, you had asked about dispatching. And then what was the other part of the question?
Anything you want to say for freight brokers, The freight
Oh
broker.
yeah, for freight brokers, just be straightforward. That's the biggest thing I could see a lot of times when it comes to, and I've learned this from my experience in sales. When you're actually trying to sell a product, it's kind of hard to sell a product, right? The best thing that you could do is do a lot of exploration, if you will. Ask questions that are going to give you information based on how the business runs and the business operates. Also try to find issues that you could possibly help them get around with their customer, right? And then you don't sell them anything, you just show them something they already want to buy. One of the biggest things that I've seen from the sales aspect was, if I could help your company take care of a problem for your customer, then that's the best chance that I have at securing your business, rather than trying to say, hey, well, you must need this or you must want that. What are some of the problems you're experiencing with your carrier, right? Oh, well, and not saying anything specific, but, oh, well, we use FedEx and we know there's a lot of packages that are gone. Okay, well, one great thing UPS has done, right? And this is where I'm not selling Newegg, I'm just talking about the business that we do. They allow their customers to directly communicate with UPS so that they don't have to communicate with the e-commerce store or the site that they bought their product from. That's not only solving a transportation thing for the customer, that's also cutting down on that company's customer service responses that they have to give out, right? So there's a lot more things that you can do when it comes to gaining somebody's business than just trying to sell whatever it is that you have. And I would start with learning what it is that they want to buy.
Yeah, definitely. Nathan, do you have any perspective or opinion on how the industry might change in the next few years?
I do think it's going to continue along the path of going more in a parcel direction. Distributors are going to be a little bit more like just there's always going to be larger distributors, but they were going to play a smaller role in the aspect that small companies are going to start building. Having huge companies like Walmart come into play today, I don't really see that as a huge possibility. You're always going to have your large companies that grow and develop. But for the most part, people like yourself, right, you might run 6 or 7 different businesses, right? You have your podcast, you have your Instagram page, which could be a source of income. And so rather than building this giant Walmart type of thing, you're going to build a little bit more of smaller businesses that are more beneficial to, say, like your needs or whatever your specific customers are. So I think that's going to be the biggest expanse. Then again, those core logistics companies are never going to go away. But I just see the industry kind of growing and changing. And then I am very interested to see how this all normalizes, because what I expected during the pandemic was, let's just say you have 50% of your consumers that never shopped online and they don't really care to. Then you have the other side that are all about shopping online because it's so easy and convenient. Now, when the pandemic hit, you kind of forced everybody into that online model. So out of that first half of the population, I would say about half of them just dealt with it because they had to. And the other half, they finally realized what the true benefit of shopping online is. So now that we're normalizing out, my question is, when you have your first 100% of the population, there's that 50% that was forced into it and that 50% that already likes it. Of those people that were forced into it, how many are actually going to stay with e-commerce? And I would say maybe around 20 to 25% of those people are going to be shopping online continually. And then most of those people are actually going to go back down to Walmart. But we'll see how it goes. And I think we need another year of normalization to kind of see where this year lands, and then getting into next year before we can finally estimate, like, how much did e-commerce grow? Because e-commerce does have an expansive growth on its own, and then the pandemic boosted that tenfold. So, it'll be very interesting to see what the consumer base does over the next year or two.
Sure. I like your answer, Nathan. And to wrap stuff up, I'm going to ask you some random questions, not involving logistics. I wanted to hear, well, first, do you listen to any podcasts? And if you do, what are your favorite podcasts? And what would you tell a recent college grad, like what kind of some life wisdom would you give a recent college grad?
So podcasts, I do listen to Joe Rogan a lot. I started listening to yours over the past couple days here. Not really huge on any specific podcast, but I do say, like, go on YouTube and I'll watch like short pieces of it. So Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, And then there's a couple from the military that Jocko Willink is a good one that I'll kind of watch snippets of. I guess my best advice for anybody coming out of college is, make your mistakes now. Don't be scared. It's a lot harder to start a business when you have a house to pay for and cars, especially when you have kids. So do whatever you can now and don't be scared to fail at anything because, there is no real growth without failing at something. And as long as you learn from it, sounds kind of cliche, but as long as you learn from whatever failure it was, then you didn't really fail. You grew. Kind of like when you break your arm, your bones are going to grow back and that specific spot will never break again. But you have an entire body that you could break.
Yeah.
It's kind of how you need to look at failure, and just know that you're going to fail at everything you do and you're going to fail multiple times. But as long as you don't consistently fail at the same exact thing, then you're actually improving.
And eventually you'll be successful at it.
Yeah. Some people it's 40, some people it's 20, but persistence beats resistance. So that's where being what the gentleman from Echo said, being persistent, right, and being making sure you keep that contact, right. If you apply that to a lot of things in your life, discipline is one of the key things for success, but persistence will give you the discipline you need over time. So even if you don't have it right away, just sticking to it is sticking to it and knowing that you're going to fail. Those are the two things that I would say you need to focus on.
Definitely. Well, I appreciate that wisdom. I totally agree with you. And thank you for your time, Nathan. I'm going to stop recording here. And that's a wrap on this episode.